Shalom Aleichem, Erev Tov. We're continuing the Rambam's Mishneh Torah. If you open up the Rambam's Mishneh Torah to the laws of war, we are in chapter 6. So it's today laws of kings and war. Perek Vav. So 6. Shishi, yeah. And I'm in Halakha Yud Bet, number 12. Rabbenu HaRambam tells, 11, Halakha 11. Rabbenu HaRambam says the following. Are we allowed to surround or attack our enemies on Shabbat? So does the Israeli army have to keep Shabbat? And by the way, you should know, in general, I just spoke about this, in which I watched a mini documentary about Jehovah's Witnesses and how they're not allowed to accept blood transfusions. And when I was listening to them speaking about, I think these were the Jehovah's Witnesses. And when they asked them why you don't accept, because what happened was in the context of a woman who was going to give birth, and she had a high-risk birth, and the question was if she needed blood, would they give her blood? And her husband signed paperwork saying they will not accept blood, even if that means she's going to die. And they were crying, and they have to have faith, and we have to have faith, that God's going to protect us. And, as a Jewish person watching this video, it was very difficult for me. But it got more difficult when they asked them, can you explain to us why you don't accept blood transfusions? And they said, sure, it's because it's written in the Bible that you can't. And here I am, many years I've studied the Bible. And I don't recall anywhere in the Bible where it says you cannot accept blood transfusions. It says in the Torah that you cannot consume blood. Yes? What do we know about that? Eating the blood of an animal, you're not allowed to consume it. Eating it. Yeah? But if you were going to get an animal transfusion of blood, I don't even know if it would kill you, such a thing, but let's say, would that be violating that prohibition? No. But because they don't have the Torah, they didn't receive it in Har Sinai, they don't have a Torah Shabbat Pen, oral law to explain to them the Torah, they literally understand that you cannot take any blood into you. And that means they would rather choose death than survive and have a life together. And that brings to me again the beauty of the Torah. At the end of the day, all of our mitzvot are very important until human life comes into the equation. Once human life enters the equation, we break Shabbat, we eat on Yom Kippur, we do all the things you eat not kosher food. If the doctors were to say that a person has to have a certain medicine made of something, it doesn't matter. If that's what they need, that's what they're going to take, and that's what they're going to do to live, even when we violate the Shabbat, which violating Shabbat is the death penalty. Our rabbis tell us it is better to violate one Shabbat, and the person should live for many more Shabbatot, than to not violate one Shabbat and have them die. Yes?
There's a witness that you're allowed to surround your city on Shabbat. When they're conquering the city of Yericho, it's on Shabbat, and they're fighting, they're blowing the shofar, and it's all taking place on Shabbat. So is the city of Ai.
Very good. You learn Tanakh with Ima? Good. So here it says, Tsarin al ayarot hagoyim b'Shabbat. We attack the non-Jewish cities on Shabbat. Tsarin is really surrounding them.
I studied with a Rebbe who only take transfusions. You need transfusion from Jewish.
Such a ridiculous thing, by the way.
That's different than...
such things, it's bad enough people think them, it's worse that people say them, and it's even worse that people write them down, and it's Hashem Yishmor Otanu. That kind of mentality can get Jews killed. Yeah. I'm not saying you, him. Yeah. Ve'osini mahem milchama b'Shabbat, and we make war with them on Shabbat. Shneimar, because it says in the Torah, what does it say? Ad ridita, until you completely conquer them. That's when you stop the war. V'afilu b'Shabbat, ben milchemet mitzvah, ben milchemet hareshut. It doesn't matter if it's a mitzvah war or an optional war the king elected. We wage war on Shabbat. This also has a connection to human life. You stop waging a war, people die. We don't stop. We don't stop until we're done. David HaMelech says, he will pursue his enemies and he will not return until he wipes them out. Until he has complete success, he will not come back. This is very important, especially now. Because now there's all kinds of conversations. Do we stop the war? Do we continue the war? Do we have the war? Do we not have the war? All of that conversation is ignoring the halakha that we don't stop a war until we win the war. And how do you define winning the war? Complete and total conquering of our goals. Rambam continues. Keshechonin. You know, the army, it marches and it marches and it marches, and every once in a while it has to stop. The word chonin.
I'll say that.
What is chonin?
Like camping.
To camp, like a machane. Very good. A camp is called a machane because it's somewhere where you stop. That's why the rabbinic play on the word of Chanukah, even though Chanukah literally means lachnoch, to dedicate Chanukah to Mizbeach, but they say Chanu Kafhe. They stopped on the 25th of Kislev. That's why, again, it's not a shot. That's not what it means. It's not what it means, but that's definitely the word. So Chonin, when the army has to stop, Chonin bekol makom. We stop everywhere. What does it mean we stop everywhere?
It means that all activities stop.
That's true, but you have to stop for the night. The soldiers need to camp. Where do they camp? We're on the way. We're in war. We're marching in the battle. Now we have to take a break for the night. We have to sleep. Where can we sleep? People's property. You can camp out in the fields, in the orchards. You don't have to go look for public property, for government land. For you stop anywhere the army needs to stop.
What if you're in the middle?
Anywhere the army needs to stop. Umi sheneherag b'milchama, and anyone who dies while at war, b'makom shipol, wherever he drops, sham yikaver, that's where he's buried. Koneh mekomo kemet mitzvah. He owns his land, the place where he dropped, like a met mitzvah. Like a, I don't know if there's an English phrase for this. A met mitzvah, we'll discuss in a moment, is remember the person who dies and has no one else to bury them? And so we bury them there on the side of the road or in the field, meaning wherever we find them, that's where we bury them. Now, if I can just explain to you for a moment, there is a little bit of an argument among the rabbis whether it means you have to bury them there or whether it means you can bury them there. Likely, if a person has a family and they want to bury them somewhere else and they want to have a grave for them, then that's fine. There's the Meiri writes such a thing. The Meiri, he says in Masechet Avodah Zarah, I think. No. Masechet Eruvin. The Meiri, he says that a person doesn't have to be buried there, but that he has the rights or the privileges to be buried in that place where he falls.
Even if it's behind enemy lines.
Correct. I mean, the whole point is that it won't be enemy lines anymore. That will soon be our land that we conquered. Here is an interesting halakha. What is the definition of a met mitzvah? So if you wanted to look with me for a moment, if you're comfortable flipping around, if you look in the laws of mourning, which are right near here, so if you look with me in the laws of Evel, the laws of mourning, it's literally the section before here, right? It's still in the book of Shoftim. A Kohen, as you know, chapter 3, who is a Kohen allowed to become impure for? Meaning, with which dead bodies can a Kohen touch or be involved in a burial? Okay, who are his? There's 6 closest relatives and then his wife, right?
Okay.
So you'll say 7, fine. Okay, yeah, very good. But who are the 6 relatives?
Father, mother, a brother, sister.
Kim lishero hakarov elav la'aviv li'imo, for his father, for his mother, for his brother, a sister from his father, his son, and his daughter. Yes? And on top of that, what do we have? We also have his wife, right? So he's not allowed to be involved in death at all. By the way, Kohanim have a complicated time in life. Going into cemeteries, they're not able to go. Entering hospitals, being in certain airplanes, perhaps, where there are dead bodies. Imagine a Kohen who wants... How many Dr. Kohens do you know? Dr. Kohen went to medical school, had to practice with some kind of cadavers. Those kind of things are problematic for him. This halakha, though, is suspended, like Rachel mentioned. Look in halakha chet. Halakha chet, number 8, of the 3rd chapter of the laws of mourning.
It's what met.
The Ramban says, Kohen shepaga'a bemet mitzvah baderech. If a Kohen is walking along the road and he bumps into a met mitzvah, a person who's just dead on the side of the road, meaning nobody came to claim this person.
Why is it called a met mitzvah?
Because, very good. Why is it called a met mitzvah? Chachamim tell us it's a mitzvah to bury them. It's a dead person who's a mitzvah for us to be involved in their burial. Why? Because there's no one else to do it. Yeah, there's no one else. You don't even get a thank you card from anybody. There is no anybody. This person clearly has no relatives, or if they have relatives, they don't care about them. You know, you go now to the morgue here in San Diego County. There are bodies that haven't been claimed in a few years. They found a body on the side of the road in Mission Bay, put it in a refrigerator, wait. There's a database you can go online to see.
There's no expiration.
I don't know what the rules are, like if they do have some kind of cutoff where they put people... They do a mass burial?
Hey, how about the war? The war, what do you do as a Kohen?
What do you mean? Can a Kohen go to war? Yeah, he has to go to war. But
Yes, but he will die next to him. Obviously.
so then that's a question of what a Kohen does in war. But here you find Hareze mittamelo. The Kohen has an obligation to get involved and bury this dead person. Afilu Kohen Gadol chayav litamelo ulkovro. Even the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, has to defile himself, meaning now he'll no longer be pure. He cannot go work in the Beit HaMikdash and bury this person. Ve'ezehu met mitzvah. What is the definition of a met mitzvah? Ze echad miYisrael. This is a Jewish person. Shayam mushlach baderech, who's thrown on the side of the road. Ve'en lo kovrin. And he has no one to bury him. So this whole story, by the Bemet Dvarim Amurim, that's assuming the Kohen's not traveling with his buddy the Levi who can do the job for him, or his friend the Israel who can do the job for him. But if he has someone else to help him, then obviously someone else should do it instead of the Kohen. But here is very interesting, which is that you find that even a Kohen has to make himself available for a met mitzvah. It's something that most people probably don't think about. A met mitzvah means that we have an obligation, something more important than the holiness of a Kohen, is to take care of a person who has no one else to bury them. So back to the Rambam where we are. If you wanted a source, Zev, for why it's called a met mitzvah, in the Rambam's book of mitzvot, in this mitzvah, he says it's a met mitzvah, it's a met that we have a mitzvah to bury him. He is the one who writes it like that.
613.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not. Another Rambam.
Well, yeah, all kinds of lists about what is a mitzvah, what is not. But here, this mitzvah that we have of a Kohen getting involved, it's not explicitly written in the Torah, but it's something we have in tradition, rabbinic tradition that teaches us that. Halakha 13, Yud Gimel. Ve'arba'a devarim patru b'machaneh. There are 4 things that you're usually not allowed to do, or usually you have to do, but when you are in the camp of the army, you are exempt. So the laws are different. There are 4 areas of halakha which are different when you're a soldier at war inside of the camp. The first, ochelin hademai. We eat demai. Demai. Anyone have a working definition for me of demai?
It's what's the masot. It hadn't been separated yet. Yeah, for the masot, but it's not separated yet.
So this is food before they took out.
Or it's unknown if it's separated.
Thank you very much. I was waiting for you. let's look at the laws of Maaser. If you like to open up the Rambam, you can find in the book of Zeraim the laws of Maaser. Chapter 9. Bimei Yochanan Kohen Gadol, says the Rambam in the first halakha, chapter 9 of the laws of Maaser. In the days of Yochanan, the Kohen Gadol, it seems like it's the third one who was the Kohen Gadol in the times of the HaShamayim. Seems like there's speculation here. And for those who are interested, he was the Kohen Gadol right after Shimon the Kohen Gadol, who Ben Sirah praises him. Yeah. Shaya Achar Shimon HaTzadik, who was after Shimon HaTzadik. Shalchu Bedin Hagadol, the Bedin Hagadol, the Supreme Court, sent people around. Uvadku Bechol Gevul Israel, and they checked all of the borders of Israel, meaning every Jewish community in the Jewish people. Umatzeu, and they found Shehakol Zehirin Bitruma Gedola Umafrishin Ota, that everybody is careful with taking off the Teruma Gedola, the tithing. Aval Maaser Rishon Maaser Sheni Maaser Ani, but the Maaser, the first one, the second one, and the one for the poor, Hayu Amei Haaretz Misrael Mekilin Al Atzman Velo Hayu Mafrishin Otan. The ignoramuses of the Jewish people. What does it mean, Am Haaretz? It means literally the people of the land. But Rambam explains, if you look in the introduction, it says commentary in the Mishnah, Rabbenu Rambam explains, Am Haaretz is somebody who does not study Torah. It's an Am Haaretz, right? You can have an Am Haaretz who studies Torah. There's some people like that too. They study Torah incorrectly. But an Am Haaretz is a person who's not knowledgeable or doesn't have a working knowledge of the Torah.
Judgment that a peasant is ignorant?
Unfortunately, yeah, that's the case. By the way, I have Amei Haaretz all the time. There are a lot of religious Amei Haaretz all the time. I know some people here in the community, sometimes they get accosted by somebody, oh, you're from Kehillat HaShamayim, you're Rabbi A, B, C, D, E, F, G, okay. Can you please show us the part of the Shulchan Aruch where it says what you're saying? They don't even own a Shulchan Aruch. If you brought them a Shulchan Aruch, they wouldn't know how to read the Shulchan Aruch. If even they could read the Shulchan Aruch, they wouldn't even have heard of the book, the Shulchan Aruch. And so who are you to tell somebody A, B, C is wrong when you don't even know anything? I mean, it's okay to have an argument. Have an argument. But you're not even qualified to have that argument. So who gave you the right to have an opinion? I keep kasher. Okay, you do. Do you know where to find those laws of kashrut? Do you know where they are in the Shulchan Aruch? You don't know where they are, so then you can't say you keep kashrut. If you don't know where to find it in the Mishneh Torah, then likely you've never studied those laws. Likely you've never studied those laws. You probably don't know those laws. You heard them from somebody else. If you heard them from somebody else, I wouldn't be so brave as to argue with people who read them from the book, because you have second-hand or third-hand or fourth-hand information. And what do you know about second-hand information? In the laws of Shabbat we studied last night, Kli shani lo mevashel. When you put the hot water in a second cup already, you can put your tea bag. Why? It doesn't cook, right? Second-hand information is useless. What does it help a person who I heard a rabbi once told me? Who cares what a rabbi once told me? Did you study this for yourself? You don't know it for yourself? Don't argue with people. So, the Amei Haaretz, they weren't so careful with Terumot and Masrot. With Terumot and Masrot, no. Lefichach, and therefore, gazru shelo yeh ne'eman ha'masrot, ela anashim ne'emanim kesherim. And therefore, our rabbis made a decree that even though usually you trust Jewish people with matters of halakha, but Amei Haaretz, you can't trust them when it comes to Masrot, because practically we see they're not careful about it. Aval Amei Haaretz perotehen safek. The Amei Haaretz, their fruits that they did not take off the Maaser, they did not remove these tithes from them, their fruits are now a doubt. Are they allowed to be eaten? Are they not allowed to be eaten? Because some of them maybe do take off Maaser. Some of them don't, but we can't trust them. Ve'enan ne'emanim lomar me'usarin hen. And they can't trust them to say, oh, I took Maaser off of this, because maybe they didn't. Ve'zehu hanikra demai. And that's what our Chachamim called demai. So something that for sure was not taken off Ma'asot, it's not called demai. Demai is something, it's a doubt whether the people took tithes from it or the people did not take tithes from it. The Rambam, in his commentary in the Mishnah of Berachot, chapter 7, oh look, my parents bought me this as a gift for my birthday. This set of books over here. Yeah. So, thank you very much, Abba Nima. In the 7th chapter of Berachot, Rambam says, Demai, here's his translation. And this is Arav Kapach's translation of the Arabic, yes? Hu hadavar sheyesh bo safek im hufreshu mimeno ma'asrot o lo hufreshu. It's anything that we're not sure. There's a doubt whether someone removed the maaser or did not remove the maaser. V'gam hi mila murkevet, and the word demai is actually a word that is made up of two separate words. Da mai, meaning this. What is its status? It's a question of do we know that this fruit was taken maaserot from it? The name itself teaches you what it means. It's made up of two words, and the words mean, hey, what's the status of this fruit? You don't know what the status of the fruit is, so then we cannot eat this fruit. That's demai. When you are in war, you are allowed to eat demai. Yeah, that's a special dispensation that was made for soldiers who are in battle. Uchlinet demai. Kosher they would have to eat. I mean, unless there's like a life-threatening situation. But who else is allowed to eat demai? Poor people. By poor people, what are you going to do? You're going to always be strict on them? They're going to have nothing to eat.
Prisoners?
You could argue a poor person, a prisoner, maybe. But here, the classic people who are exempt, soldiers at war, and poor people. Sure, this is a very important halakha about poor people. You're not going to like what I'm going to say. My opinion is that most of the people who eat are very careful about kashrut. What do I mean very careful? Not according to halakha, but they only drink the water bottle with 3 hechsharim on it, and they only have the aluminum foil that is kasher le Pesach. And all, you know those people. It's a certain type of person. Most of them are poor. Most of them are poor. And I can't tell you what came first, the chicken or the egg. Are they poor because that's how they buy their things? Are they poor because maybe they're not educated enough to know what is right? Can't tell you why they're poor. I tell you, all of these kollel people, they're poor. They qualify for the most part, unless their father is the rich guy from the 5 towns or something. For the most part, they're poor people. That's who they are. And it's so sad to me to see that it's dafka the poor people who everybody's trying to make extra stringencies on them. You can't eat this, you can't eat that, you can't buy this, you can't go there, you can't wear this. And then they're the ones you should give all of the exceptions of the rules to, because they don't have miskanim. They don't have. They say the miracle of Pesach is that the money that was supposed to last you for a whole month doesn't even last you for 8 days. That's the miracle of the story of Pesach. So it's like opposite of Chanukah. You know, it's the oil that lasted 1 day lasted 8 days. Here is the salary of a month doesn't last 8 days. But this is miskanim. This is what they are.
In Yiddish we say pay azach.
What does it mean?
Pay a lot.
Pay.
Yiddish azach.
Okay. Now look here. I have to tell you. So what do people counter to me? In these communities, they have special food drives. They give out free boxes of food before Pesach. Yeah, I'll give you a better example. It would be better for me that you wouldn't have to give people handouts. Meaning, yes, you're right. So how do you justify your crazy stringencies that you give people free oranges? Great. You think that's what we need? Like that's what Am Yisrael right now is missing? There are certain places where you can say, you, my friend, cannot afford to be strict in this halakha. You're not entitled to that luxury. Don't do it. Who teaches halakha like that? Our chachamim were worried about people's money. And so soldiers are exempt from the prohibition of eating demai. Ufturin mirchitzat yadayim batechila. Soldiers are also exempt when they're in war from washing their hands before they eat bread. Yeah? If you look. Right, so there are ways to do hand washing. There are ways to do hand washing without water. So here it's not a matter of they don't have water. The assumption is they have water. Yeah? Here's what the Rambam tells us. If you look in the laws of Berachot, in the 6th chapter of the laws of Berachot, the Rambam writes the following. Yeah, if you look in the laws of blessing, so it's like in the beginning of the Rambam's. Chapter 6, Halakha 3. So the Rambam explains why you have to wash your hands. At the beginning of the meal, we wash our hands. It's a rabbinic law. So then if they don't have to wash their hands at the beginning, what does it tell you? When do they have to wash their hands? At the end, when they finish the meal. What's that water called? Mayim acharonim. Now, most people are very lax about Mayim acharonim. Yeah, I'm not telling you yes or no. Right now, I'm not giving a class on Mayim acharonim or the laws of Mayim acharonim. Right now, just for a moment, so what was the reason why we wash our hands at the end of the meal? The reason is that when you eat food, says the Rambam in the 3rd halakha, Shema yesh bo melach sedomit. Maybe there is salt from Sodom. Or melach shetiv'o keteva melach sedomit. Or there's salt that's like the salt of Sodom. Very powerful salt. V'yavir yadav al enav v'yisameh. And you'll touch your eyes and you will become blind. That's why we wash our hands, Mayim acharonim, because of the salt of Sodom. By the way, maybe they were all Sephardim, they were like that, and that's what they were afraid of. Who knows? That's the reason they were worried about it.
Said it's to clean the mustache from the challah crumbs.
There is a halakha like that, about washing your mouth also, not just your hands. Okay? But here, Uva Machanen, in the army camp, they're exempt from washing their hands in the beginning, says the Rambam, before eating bread, mipnei shehen tirudin b'milchama, because they are too busy with the war to deal with washing hands. So why don't you exempt them from the last waters? Why don't you tell them, hey, skip the last ones also? The first water you wash because it's a mitzvah. The second water you wash because it's dangerous. Very good. Says the Rambam. We can't exempt them from danger. The soldiers shouldn't do anything dangerous. We're afraid they're going to get blind. What good is a blind soldier? Yeah. Meaning, the exemption of washing hands exists only in a situation where it's not dangerous. But in a situation where it's dangerous, of course we're going to make the soldiers wash their hands. We don't want them to die. We don't want them to get blind. We don't want them to harm themselves. Today, you have salt of Sodom? No. Today you eat with your hands?
No.
How many do you eat with your hands?
Maybe a sandwich.
Okay, maybe it depends what you're eating, yeah? In a meal that you don't eat with your hands, and your hands are clean, I'm not sure why you have to wash my machon. You're eating something. You're eating chicken wings, I don't know, you're fine, okay. You go to the tish and you get a kugel in your hands, fine. You're eating maybe some hummus with a pita or tortillas with some sauce, yeah, fine, okay. But for the most part, if you're eating with a fork and a knife and a spoon, your fork has to do my machon, but you don't have to do my machon.
Maybe because of the minhag, it is my machon chova.
Right, chova midrabanan. It's a rabbinic obligation. What can I tell you? I can tell you that in Rav Peretz's house, if you get up to do my machonim, it's one way to get thrown out of his house. Yeah, it's almost an easy way to get thrown out of the front door. Who do you think you are? You do my machonim? I don't do my machonim. Yeah. So, this next halakha. Umaviim kol mine etzim mikol makom, and you bring all kinds of trees, wood, from any place that you want. Now, this is actually something you probably, an area of halakha you're not even familiar with. The laws of niskei mamon, the laws of damage. It's probably going to be in that volume of the Mishneh Torah, but it's, let me see if I can find it for you. It depends on the set that you have. It could be that they break it up into 2 volumes, and it could be, I feel like this edition, this edition has 2 volumes, so it would be in the volume right before this. Yeah, it will be a Niskei Mamon. I don't know how they translate it, like property damages or financial damages. So in the 5th chapter of Niskei Mamon, Rambam writes the following. Asara Tnaim hitna Yehoshua, 3rd halacha, uvedino b'sha'a shechilek et haaretz. When Yehoshua and his bedin, Yehoshua was giving out the land of Israel, he was allocating land, so him and his bedin, they made 10 rules. One of the rules had to do with if you're allowed to go to someone else's property and take wood from there. Is it dry wood? Is it fresh wood? Can you cut wood off of their tree for your fire? You're not harm. Let's say you're not taking the roots out. You're just taking out a branch. And what if it's the kind of wood that the person would like to keep? So maybe you can only take the twigs. There were halachot that were made about which wood you can take from someone else's property to use in your fire and your cooking, whatever you need. Now, by the way, those of us in San Diego, it's kind of complicated for us to think, I'm going to go to my next door neighbor's backyard and grab a branch from his tree, and then, of course, he's going to be upset. Why is the neighbor going to be upset? Because you're in his property, and 2, you broke a branch from the only tree he has. But imagine, you see these, I didn't realize this till you see properties in Nebraska. I don't know. The guy, for the same amount of money that you bought your car, he bought 300 acres in Nebraska, and he has 2 rivers, a creek, and a waterfall running in his backyard. Yeah, he puts private property, beware, you'll be shot all over his property. And sometimes he doesn't even forget, he doesn't even see the other side of his property. He doesn't care about the tree that's all the way. Yoshua's big pieces of land you're talking about here. It's not a tree in your next door neighbor's, but you have to think a little bigger than just the tree in the guy's backyard. He has 1,000 trees. He has wood falling all over the place. He doesn't care if you grab some wood from the floor. So Yehoshua made rules which wood you can take, which wood you can't take, in which situations. The soldiers can take all the wood they need. They don't have rules that govern the wood that they need. They need it to cook, they need it to light fires, to stay warm, whatever they need to do.
What if there's a rasha who makes a hard time for the soldiers?
So he's a problematic person.
There's places like, New Mexico, they have land grants, and it's communal, you can get your wood and so forth.
Right, so that would be similar, by the way. That would be similar to the idea of someone making a rule about what you can do with this land. That's what Yehoshua did, essentially. So he was like the guy who made the rules of the land grants. So I don't know what the rules are, but that would be something similar. Even if he finds dry wood and they're cut already, whatever it is, he's allowed to take those woods. It's really not relevant for us to get into the halakha of which wood and which no wood. You want to know those halachot? I told you where to look it up. And also, פטורין מלערב עירובי חצרות במחנה, אלא מטלטלין מאוהל לאוהל ומסוכה לסוכה. There's a eruv chatzerot that one has to do when you're essentially combining all the individual tents or all the individual units in a place into one unit. They're exempt from this. V'hu shiakifu kol hamachane, but that's assuming that they make a mechitza, an eruv. How do they make an eruv? They have to surround the whole camp. Mechitza givoha, with a wall that is tall 10 tefachim, 10 tefachim tall. How big is a tefach?
Like this.
Your fist minus your thumb. Yes, probably my fist, not Elchanan's fist, but let's say a grown fist. No, it's small. That's a wall. In halakha, that's considered a wall. If you ever saw old synagogues in America that had mechitzot that were that tall, they were relying on this idea that that's a wall. According to halakha, for all intents and purposes, that thing that you trip over and break your head is considered a wall. That's what it is. Because now you've made the whole camp into a private domain, and if you want to look up these Shabbat, like we explained the laws of Shabbat, if you want, you can look in the laws of Shabbat, chapter 14, chapter 16, and those halachot over there, the Rambam explains how eruvin work and how combining what is private property, public property. I mamash don't want to get stuck on it there, but there are certain exemptions that our soldiers have when dealing with war and the camp there. Ve'en machane pechuta me'asara. But in order for it to be a camp, it has to have 10 people inside of it. Less than 10 people, it's not really considered a group of people. וכשם שפטורים מכל אלו בהליכתן, כך פטורין בחזירתן. And just like the soldiers are exempt from all of these things on the way to war, they're also exempt from those things on the way back from war. So there's an interesting question discussed by later rabbis in this generation. For example, someone who's a Jewish paramedic is allowed to answer a 911 call on Shabbat? Yeah, he's on duty. They say, hey, that bit of Knesset has a fire. There are people trapped inside. Can he take the call? Great, he takes the call. Now, he gets in his ambulance. He leaves the Shabbat table. He flies that side of town. They say people, they're taking him to the hospital. Now he's stuck in the hospital. Let's say this happened in New York. He goes from Brooklyn. Now he finds himself, the only hospital openings was in Manhattan. Now he's in Manhattan with his ambulance. It's Friday night, 11 p.m. What does he do? Does he walk home? Does he wait there until Shabbat is over? There are some conversations among the Chachamim. I'm not telling you now halakha l'maaseh. I'm just telling you that if you don't let him go home, then he's never going to answer a call again on Shabbat. His wife is going to handle him leaving the 13 kids at home and disappearing to Manhattan for Shabbat once. And then next Shabbat, she's going to say, hey, turn off your walkie-talkie. I'm not taking any emergency calls like that. Last Shabbat, there was an emergency in the house and you weren't here to take care of it. Yes? And so there's some kind of conversation of, if you allow a person to get somewhere, perhaps you have to also let them come back from somewhere. And I'm not saying that these laws are identical, but that the idea here is similar.
I know some doctors, friends of my daughter, who are in internship. They have young kids and everything. They're not home in Shabbat. They're in the hospital
The whole time. Listen, my brother is doing his what do they call it? That part. All kinds of halachic questions. Chavah, you shouldn't ask me these questions because people do all kinds of things in Shabbat they shouldn't be doing. Let's say you're the doctor saving people's lives, fine. But what if you're just a doctor who they're asking to put bandages on people? You're busy ripping papers. You're busy. I'm not talking pre-op. I'm talking you're running your rotations. You got the grunt work today. You're not the chief surgeon of the hospital there. They're giving you all kinds of things to do. So better that I don't answer these questions. So
He has 2 books that tell him all the halacha.
good. I'm glad the books tell him the halachot because that's why he got the books. I told him I wouldn't answer them. So last halachot for tonight. If I can, I want to finish this chapter with you together. V'asur lihipanot betoch hamachane. It is forbidden to go to the restroom inside of the camp. Lipanot really means to sit and use the restroom. Yes, inside of the camp.
based on the Torah.
Yeah, the Torah. It's a verse in the Torah. It's forbidden on the surface of the field anywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. You cannot go to the restroom on the earth. Ela mitzvat aseh letaken derech sham. It's a mitzvah according to the Torah to make a place miuchedet lihipanot ba, a place where people go to the restroom. Shenemar, like it says in the book of Devarim, v'yad tiyeh lecha michutz lamachaneh. That you have to, this is the pasuk we studied at the beginning of this whole section. You have to have a place where people go in the camp. And therefore, v'chen mitzvat aseh, it's therefore a positive mitzvah, an active mitzvah, liot yated lekol echad ve'echad. That every person has to have, let's just translate here, yated, as a shovel. I'm not exactly sure that a yated is necessarily a shovel, but it's some digging tool. Okay, it's a digging tool. Tiluya im kle milchamto. You see, we have a police officer comes here on Shabbat. What does he have on his belt? Walk me through his belt. He has a gun, pepper spray, taser, walkie-talkie, flashlight, camera, extra ammunition, some more extra ammunition, but these are only American police officers, In England, the police officer, he just, thank you, please. He doesn't have anything. He gets a little stick he can hit you with. They have a baton, maybe. I don't know if they carry batons anymore, the police. Handcuffs, okay. Yeah, that's all. You know how heavy that stuff is, by the way? You know how heavy it is?
Almost 40 pounds.
It's a lot of money. Very heavy.
It's almost 40 pounds.
They have a special belt. Do you think your belt can handle all of that? They put it on, they take it off. It's like when you see the Israeli soldiers, they go to war, they have these huge backpacks. You ever try to wear one of those backpacks? You probably couldn't even get it off the ground. It's very, very heavy. But those backpacks, you could fit a person inside of them. You could fold a person, it's a big backpack. They call them a kit bag. That's what they call that backpack. Now, the police officer comes here. Anything extra he has to carry, he's upset about. That's the truth. They want him to have an extra pepper spray, extra taser, because he doesn't want a taser. He wants a gun to just kill the guy. Why do you need it? Because they don't want people dropping dead all the time. So everything extra he carries is heavy for him. Halakha requires he carries one more thing. Put your digging tool here. You walk around with a digging tool. Every soldier carries a digging tool in order to make sure that when he needs to go to the bathroom, he doesn't leave his excrement lying on the field, but rather he digs, he goes, he covers it up like a human being does. It's a halakha, it's in the Torah. You know, Israeli soldiers who are at war, they have to carry in their pocket a piece of paper. You ever seen the card they carry?
Like this is what a police carries. They just
Very good.
You're talking.
You can show us. The people on Zoom don't get to see you. No, come here. This is what the police officer carries. El Hanan's artist rendition. Yes? So, the Israeli soldiers carry a card in their pocket. Anyone know what this card is? It's kind of like a business card.
You let them go on buses free.
Do I have any Israeli soldiers here? Former Israeli soldiers?
To swipe.
Ethics.
Sweep.
What?
Ethics.
No.
Like,
No.
no?
To sweep. To sweep to the side.
It's a hostage card.
What?
Oh, yeah.
No
Sure.
sense.
Yeah. They have a word for it in Hebrew. Right now, if you don't believe me,
What is it?
Is this only in Israel?
it's something for when they go bashevi. When they go in
But they
captivity.
have it on their neck. Right?
No.
A diskit.
No. Guys, I know what I'm talking about. Diskit is a dog tag.
Right.
Diskit, guys, not a Hebrew word. Diskit is like a disc. Somebody made it up a word, yeah? It's a dog tag they wear here. It has their name. Why do they do that? If they get blown up, we know who they are. That's why they're there. That's what the dog tag is for. This is a card.
They're hostages, Yoni. Because they can only give this information.
But that's not written there.
He's looking it up.
Is the white card like a white flag so they can surrender?
I think
It's called a Pinkas Shevi. Okay? It looks like this. I don't know if I can show you. It's called a Pinkas Shevi.
I don't see it.
It's a record. By the way, it's written in Hebrew and in French. It's all part of I think the Geneva Convention. The language here is French. For whatever reason, it says, for example, their name, their ID number, their date of birth, the unit they serve in and their rank. And it says here that when you are a hostage, you're not allowed to share anything more than what is written on this card. So when you get taken in captivity, present your hostage taker this card and tell them, sorry, don't torture me. That's all that I'm going to be able to tell you.
Does that work?
License and registration.
It's mamash, license and registration. But the Israelis here who don't believe me, you just look it up. Look, Pinkas Shevi. This is exactly what all of our soldiers have in their pocket. Now, why did the soldiers go to war with this paper? Because these laws of war were not written for the Hamas or the Hezbollah. They were written when, like, France is fighting England, when Germany is going to war against, I don't know, Poland. And so you're assuming that all these people are playing. So, guys, let's just I don't think there's any kind of civilized war. Okay, war is war and it's ugly. But some people, they still think they're playing chess when they play war. Like they go to battle. You remember those old scenes of the British and the French, they're playing music, fancy clothing, they all dressed up for war. It's a stupid thing to do. Drums, they're marching in order. They get shot in rows. They just keep falling because they don't think they can hide. It's part of the way that Israeli soldiers think they operate is that they forget they operate in the Middle East. And they're not fighting against countries. You're fighting against terrorist organizations. People that are not beholden to any convention or any war laws or any international crime court of any stripe or color. So you're going to give them your paper. What are they going to do with your paper? Miskin, Hebrew they can't read. French they can't read. Humanity they don't have. What are they going to do?
Whip it.
And so this is an outdated idea. But why was I telling you about this? I don't remember. Our soldiers in halakha have a requirement to carry on them something that digs. If I could finish the halakha for you. Yetzeh be'otah haderech, he should go out in that same way. V'yachpor ba v'yipaneh v'yichaseh, and he should go to that place where they make for the bathroom. He should dig a hole. He should go to the bathroom and cover it. Shneimar v'yated tiyeh lecha al azenecha. You have to have this digging tool. ובין שיש עמהם ארון, בין שאין עמהם כך, הם עושים תמיד. It doesn't matter if the Ark of the Berit, the Ark of the Covenant is traveling with them or not traveling with them. Soldiers have to behave like this at war all the time. Shneimar, like it says in the Torah, v'haya machanecha kadosh, that your camp must be holy. Your camp must be holy. Being that we finished the 6th chapter here of these halachot, if you would allow me, I want to read to you just one more sentence from the Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim. Okay, one more sentence. If you can, and with this we'll call it a night. At the end of the 41st chapter of the 3rd essay of the Moreh Nevuchim. So this is essay 3 and chapter 41. And this is Rav Kapach's translation here. Rabbenu HaRambam is explaining to us some beautiful things, by the way, about the Torah in general that are found in the 3rd essay. Explanations of Pesukim and of Mitzvot and things that even for those who are not philosophically inclined or care to get involved in the mysticism of the Rambam, but very, very true, genuine explanations of what is going on inside of the Torah. Sometimes I don't understand how people can even skip these parts of study. Rabbenu HaRambam writes the following: "Umima shechala l'oto sefer zeh hatkanat yad v'yated." That which in this book you find that HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands us to have a special digging tool. Ki mimatorot haTorah hazo, because one of the purposes of the Torah, kefi shehoda'aticha, like I've already told you, HaTahara is purity. Veitrachakut min halichluchim vatinufim, and avoiding all kinds of things that are dirty and contaminated. In general, the Torah tries to keep us clean, pure, healthy. The Torah is working very hard in general for that, both physical and spiritual. V'shelo yeh ha'adam kabehemot. And in general, the purpose of the Torah is that human beings are not like animals. Animals go to the bathroom, and they just leave it there and they keep going. Human beings are not like that. We are supposed to be better than those animals. Sometimes I see here people walking their dogs. And they walk their dog and the dog makes, they pick it up. But why does the dog not pick up for himself? The dog is a behemah. And you are not. You are not. And this is one of the laws of war. V'yesh od b'mitzvah zo. And included in this mitzvah is something more. Chizuk emunah etzel halochamim b'feulot elu is to increase the emunah, the faith of our soldiers. Ki hashchina shora b'nehem, that this presence of God dwells among them. Kimo shebe'er b'tam hadavar ki Adonai Elohecha mitalech bekerev machanecha, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu says in the Torah that I am going with you in the midst of your camp. And it also says, there should be no forbidden sexual relationships happening here, anything that's connected to Gilu Arayot. להזהיר ממה שידוע ממיני השחיתות בין החיילים במחנות. עם אורחה שהייתם מחוץ לבתיהם. The hardest part of being a soldier at war is how long you have to spend away from home. Talking about people that are 117 days away from home. 119 days away from... By the way, you know what 119 days away from home is? It's nothing. It's nothing. You know the United States Marines? They deploy 18 months, they disappear. No wife, no kids, no family, sometimes no Wi-Fi, no phone call, no nothing. What do you think a person does when they're alone, away from... they're lonely, they're sad, they're depressed, they're killing people, they're 18 months. Stuck in a ship in a little quarter with a bunch of other people. It's not a natural way for a person to live their life. It's not. It's not normal. You ever seen those marriages?
When they come back,
It's terrible. It's terrible. People are not cut out for that kind of life or lack thereof. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew that it's not healthy when a soldier is away from their family, from their all of the outlets that they have at home, with their spouse, with their... And therefore, HaKadosh was commanded them, be very careful when you're in battle. לפיכך ציוונו יתעלה על מעשיהם, על מעשים המעלים על הלב, השראת השכינה בינינו. That's why the soldier constantly is commanded in mitzvot to remember HaKadosh Baruch Hu, remember HaKadosh Baruch Hu, remember HaKadosh Baruch Hu, כדי שננצל מאותם המעשים, so we are saved from behaving the way other soldiers behave in battle. לכך אמר והיה מחנך קדוש ויורה בך רבד דבר, and your camp should be holy, and there should be nothing unholy there. ואפילו בעל קרי, even if a person has an emission from their body that makes them טמא, נצטווה לצאת מן המחנה עד שיריב שמשו ואחר יבוא אל המחנה. Until he comes back into the camp, he has to wait outside. He has to count clean days. What do you mean? He's a soldier, he's a war. Doesn't matter. This camp must be holy. Because if we don't insist that the camps of our soldiers be holy, they're going to be capable of doing all the terrible things that other soldiers who go to war do. It's a good question because it has to do with not the Beit HaMikdash. It has to do with the holiness of the camp.
So whether or not they're carrying
the ark, right? But Zev is correct. It could be there is a difference. This particular halakha, that we're not so particular about Tumah and Tahara today. There were not women soldiers in Jewish culture. K'dei sheyeh mushrash. By the way, it's not necessarily true. Why am I telling you that? Because the Chachamim tell us that in a war of a mitzvah, even a kala leaves her chuppah, not just the chatan, even the bride leaves her chuppah. So what we understand from there is that the brides are recruited for the war effort, not necessarily to go to war. But, like in this country, in the world wars, women literally ran this country, which was an incredible thing because once the men came back home, then they lost all their rights and all their jobs. It was like, you were capable while we weren't here. Now that we're back, go back to the kitchen. That was the mentality, unfortunately. That was what the world looked like then. But our Chachamim had something similar in the sense that women also were involved, but not in the battlefield. כדי שיהיה מושרש אצל כל אחד כי המחנה כמקדש השם. It should be ingrained in every soldier that this camp is like a miniature בית המקדש. ואינו כמחנות הגויים לשחיתות ולפשע והזק הזולת. It's not like other nations' armies that exist for these things, לשחיתות, for corruption, לפשע, for crime, והזק הזולת, and hurting other people, ולקיחת רכושם, and taking their property, ולא יותר, and nothing else. By the way, look at Yehoshua when he goes to war. Elchanan, you mentioned I. Yeah. He makes rules. You cannot take from the people anything. And then he finds. What does he find? It's Yericho? It happens Yericho, and that's why we lose. That's why we lose an eye. We get punished an eye because of what happened there. Yeah? Achan takes things. He's corrupt. And the whole Jewish people suffer because of that. And Yehoshua takes it very seriously. It's not going to happen in our army that our soldiers behave in a manner that is not befitting them. אלא מטרתנו אנו, תיקון בני אדם לעבודת השם וסדירות מצבם. Our whole purpose when we go to war, and I've said this in many of my shiurim, especially at the beginning of this war in particular, I spoke about the are we any different? I have a shiur I taught in New York about this topic. Our purpose, twofold when we go to war. To bring people closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu by fixing them, and stabilizing their lives. וכבר הודעתיך שאני אתן טעמים רק לפשטי מקרא, and I'm only telling you things according to the true, literal meanings of the Torah. I want to explain to you that last sentence. I can't speak for the Israeli government and the Israeli defense forces and who makes decisions there, and I'm not a fool who thinks that everything there happens according to the Torah. I'm not. I can't possibly think so. Rather, what I can tell you is that in an ideal world of how a Jewish army fights, it is for the purpose of improving the world, even for stabilizing other people's societies. Now, this may be something that in today's world of colonialism and occupations, and I understand the cliches that are thrown around in these catchphrases, but the idea that even the people who are our enemies in Gaza suffer tremendously from their own government. Tremendously. They try to run away and they can't. They try to live a normal life and they can't. They try to do anything different and they get murdered. That part of our mission in the world must be, we're here also to stabilize life for the people around us. And that's part of our journey as an army. We're not just an army, we're an army of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we have entirely different responsibilities when we go to war than other people do. And all I can say is that I bless our Chayalim. I bless them that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should not just give them success. They should not just go to war and come back from war in peace and in health and security, but more than that. They should recognize that every time Am Yisrael is at war, it's an opportunity for a higher purpose. It's an opportunity to accomplish something that other armies in the world are not capable of. Other armies maybe do good things, but they lack the ability to bring divine change and sustenance to the world. And B'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh should be with them, and the verse should be fulfilled in them, that I am Adonai who walks in your camp, who marches with you with war. God willing, they should go in peace and come back home in peace. B'ezrat Hashem.